We got Gators Breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. And on this episode of Gators Breakdown, we're going to talk Florida. We'll talk SEC. We'll zoom it out a little bit to some national talk as well with Six Previews Brett Ciancia joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. And we're going to take a look at his 2025 college football season preview. Brett, we've had you on the show before. It's been quite some time. You've been making the rounds, and hey, football season's starting pretty soon. And here we go, talking some Gators, talking SEC, and talking some big scope college football.
Yeah, Dave. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been a couple years, but hey, the optimism is back at Florida. It's been a couple years for that. So, yeah, great to be back on with you. A lot to break down here with the SEC with Florida. It's a 14th annual edition of Pick Six Previews magazine, and hard copies are shipping out. It's that time of year, so. Yeah, and I'm really high on the Gators this time around. That's why I wanted to make sure we connected. I love the roster talent. It's crazy how much has changed in a couple months in college football for Florida, because back in November, it was getting a little bit ugly, but a strong close to the season, another great recruiting class is best yet, and a lot to like from Florida. So I can't wait to break it down with you.
Yeah, we're certainly Gator Nation excited for the season more so. You and I were talking beforehand. It's like, yeah, you know what? It's been about 2020, heading into that 2020 season with Kyle Trask and Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts, and well, a defense that we thought was going to be good that ended up being the killer for Florida in 2020. But it has been about that time, since we've been, I think this, and it is probably the right word, this hype for a Florida Gator team.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And I remember that 2020 team. I had them going pretty far, and the offense was certainly there. And I remember they gave Alabama a tough fight there in the SEC title game, at least into the second half. But no, this is the most complete team that Billy Napier has had. And this was his approach. If you think all the way back, I remember he was really committed to the longer term build. I think he hired that army of staffers, and they were really committed to recruiting and developing them for so many years. And even with the whole transfer, the transfer portal era, he's remained committed to that player development. So now the fruits of all that labor is here. You love you started the 5-star quarterback with DJ Lagway, and we'll work through the roster. But yeah, I mean, this is the highest I've been on Florida since 2020. I've got them 13th in the country there, a contender for the playoff, a contender for the SEC. The only limitation that I could find is just that schedule. It's an absolute gauntlet, but we'll break it down, and let me know where you want to start, offense or defense. I can't wait to break it down with you.
Yeah, but Brett, first, if this is somebody's first time checking you out here, kind of go with your magazine, and I got the cover of it up, everybody. First, let everybody know where they can find your magazine, but also, what they can expect from your magazine from a rankings accuracy standpoint of like why you're so revered by Josh Pate, who I'm such a big fan of. And I've heard Josh Pate shout you out before. I know a lot of my listeners listen to Josh. So let everybody know, the Pick Six Previews, where they can find it, but also, just why it's been so lauded. I'll let you toot your own horn for a little while.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, well, I appreciate the praise. And yeah, it's pick6previews.com. It's available there. You can get the digital copy or the hard copy magazine. We're shipping them out. And if you buy the hard copy, you also get the digital version. So for those 2 or 3 days where it's shipping, you get access right away. But I guess what makes mine a little bit different is it's really a balance between, I'm a numbers guy. I have all my advanced stats, my numbers. I found formulas and devised formulas that are able to predict games and predict seasons pretty accurately. Over the last 10 years and the last 5 years, it's been graded the number one most accurate. That's by a third-party service that grades us all. So I'll take that. If they're going to keep score, I want to win. But, so that's the numbers angle of it. But really, it's talking to head coaches, talking to coordinators, talking to beat writers, looking at spring games, practice reports, really digging in position by position and putting it into a readable format. I think that's what might help mine stand out a little bit from others is it's a balance between the numbers, but also the readable format, breaking down every team and position. So, and one last note on it, it's a one-man show. So I've got my hands all over this thing. I'm doing all 68 Power 4 teams and writing it, editing it, researching everything. So I encourage you, go check out a sample team and check out those testimonials. And would love to have you on board for 2025.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Brett, let's get into it. And first, with your rankings, I'll go through your rankings to you. I'll go through top 15 since you already mentioned Florida's 13. You have number 1, Penn State. Texas comes in at number 2. You got Ohio State 3rd. Alabama is 4th. Georgia's number 5. Number 6 is Clemson. 7 is Oregon. 8 Notre Dame. Number 9 is Miami. 10 LSU. Arizona State comes in at number 11. 12th is Texas A&M. The Gators at 13th. Oklahoma 14th. And USC 15th. So since you were talking about, you have that third-party service and it ranks you guys, it probably, and I'll let you explain it though. I'll hear it from your mouth instead. But this is more of a prediction more so than a power rating.
Yeah, exactly. It's called Stasson.com. You can go find this. It's they've been doing this for well before I was even born. They go and grade all these magazines every year, and it's based off of the conference standings predictions. So not even really who's going to win a national title. It's really actually based off the SEC 1 through 16. So we rank them in the book. And then they go and compare our rankings versus what actually happened on the field. So, for example, here with Florida, I've got them 6th place in the SEC. So at the end of the year, they'll go compare how far off that was. And, the more accurate you are, the better, obviously. So that's what we're graded off. It's conference standings predictions.
Okay. So with that, and this is like, and for you, a prediction of 6th in the conference, 13th in the country. Where, if you had, would Florida be higher in a power ranking for you? You mentioned that schedule and how brutal it can be for Florida. If you were to power rank Florida, would you have them a few spots higher?
Yeah, I think that you could really argue them on the same tier with LSU and Texas A&M and Oklahoma within the SEC. And I say that because I think that the Texas, Bama, Georgia trio, I think that they have really ascended to the top of the league.
Yep.
They're the dynasties right now, especially Georgia. And then, Alabama is still in the aftermath of the Saban dynasty. Texas is really knocking on that dynasty tier door too, with back-to-back Final Four appearances and number 1 recruiting classes. They're right there. So I think that Texas, Bama, Georgia pack is really at the top. From there, you have a lot of contenders that are similar on the recruiting trail, similar in terms of pro potential and, all those things you would look at. And I have that with LSU, A&M. I like their head coach, Mike Elko, in his 2nd season. And I like their offensive line a lot. Oklahoma, a similar spot with Florida, where they're both entering their 4th season with their head coach, still waiting for the breakthrough. And I think they're both going to get it. Although Florida and Oklahoma draw the hardest schedules in America. So that might tamper a little bit of expectations and maybe the win-loss result. But those are the 4 teams I'd look at there in that next level. And Florida certainly deserves it. It's been he's been building at this for a while, and I think this is the best team yet.
All right, so I went to your unit rankings and looking at the unit rankings, and a lot of love for the Florida offense. You got the quarterback room 6th in the country. The wide receiver and tight ends together ranked 9th in the country. Offensive line ranked 6th. And I know Gator Nation will be a little surprised that the running back room is not your top 15. But right here, 3 of the 4 ranked in your top 15 for each unit rankings. Impressive for a Gator offense.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on it. And when you narrow it down to just the SEC, I have that in the book as well. You're talking about my number 1 SEC offensive line. And what I liked about it was that they were able to pull a couple guys out of the pros. There were 2 sure NFL draft picks with Jake Slaughter and Austin Barber. Could have gone pro. They're back in Gainesville. Kind of a common thread because 2 other defensive linemen did the same thing. I think with Caleb Banks and Tyreak Sapp, I think they were both drawing NFL grades, and they returned to Florida. So, yeah, I love Florida's trenches, their offensive line. I think that's something to start with. And then with Lagway, I've got him as, I got their room as the 3rd room in the SEC. What I like about him is the plus-minus effect last year. You can really see this statistically. I wrote about this in the book, where when he's on the field, they're a top 10 offense last year in my numbers. Without him, they were bottom 10. So top 10 with, bottom 10 without. And that was as a true freshman. So I think you're going to see a huge gain, assuming he's back to full health. And you're going to see a huge gain in his 2nd season as a full-time starter. So that's where we started at. And then I started to dig into this receiver room, and there's a lot to like here. You have a former Power 4 starter with Sturdivant, the Wilson combo, and they're both back healthy, it looks like, or they will be by kickoff. That's 2 5-stars. Vernell Brown coming in, another 5-star. So I really think that he did a nice job packing this receiver room with talent to build around DJ Lagway. So that's what's driving a lot of my optimism. It's the line, it's Lagway in his second season, and it's all this 5-star depth at receiver all of a sudden.
Yeah, so it's got Gator Nation wondering, all right, well, we know Billy Napier's offensive style, but he's been recruiting receivers like this, so maybe it lends itself to opening up the offense a little bit more. And you, of course, throw in that big arm of DJ Lagway.
Yeah, the arm of Lagway, his legs, everything. And then I saw spring clips and summer clips of Dallas Wilson, and I think he's going to have quite an impact as a true freshman. I know you guys were speaking highly of him, making a big impact. I agree with you from afar. I mean, I don't see him every day, but when I see his clips come across the timeline and when I'm looking into it, he definitely looks the part. So, I think that this is one of the better receiver rooms in the country, in the conference. I think I've got him. I got him 6th in the SEC, but that's still good for top 15 nationally. You know, the SEC is so crowded with talent; it's unbelievable. So, I like what we have there on offense.
Brett, we go to the defensive side of the ball, and you mentioned, of course, like Jake Slaughter, like Austin Barber, you got Tyreak Sapp, you got Caleb Banks coming back. So in your unit rankings on that side of the ball, Florida's defensive line is 13th in your top 15 in the country. I look at it, and you can explain it to go into your SEC unit rankings. I think linebacker as a group, by the end of the season, for Florida, the staff, I'm telling you, really loves what they have at linebacker. They think they have 4 bodies there that they can they can just rotate in, pretty seamlessly with Pup Howard and Jaden Robinson and Miles Graham and Aaron Childs. And Miles Graham really came on at the end of last year for a true freshman. Pup Howard got hurt, but Jaden Robinson's probably that unsung name that I think Gator Nation knows, but I think maybe this season will kind of be revealed when you zoom out from Florida a bit. So definitely like where you got the defensive line, and I'll give you a little insight that I think this linebacker group might be in your rankings at the end of the year.
Yeah, very well could be. I know Miles Graham, he got freshman all SEC last year, and you tend to see those guys explode in their second years as well. But yeah, I agree with you. The roster talent is certainly here. I was going through and doing my advanced rosters where I dig in and look at every single player's recruiting rankings, their production at prior schools if they were transfers. But I was blown away with the starting lineup. You got, not only are they all 4-stars, but you got 7 top 200 former recruits. And that's, top 200 is a good indicator that they're right there as, maybe future NFL picks, or at least on the draft watch list. So it's really crowded here. The linebackers, you got 4 of your top 5 from last year back. They're all top 200 former recruits. And then we talked about the trenches already. That's proven. You got Banks and Sapp, a 5-star coming in with McCray. He's moving up the roster. So, yeah, I mean, it's when you're looking at this roster, there's not many holes. It's recruiting talent, but then also production at the college level. So I think you're in for another stat gain this year.
Yeah, it lends itself. I think Gator Nation kind of leans that way as well. It's like we feel like the talent's in a good spot. Definitely the best it's been under Billy Napier. Now it's about, can the man on the sideline, can Billy Napier, the game day coach, can Billy Napier all right, let's see what we're calling on 3rd down and 6, late in a game scenario, can he get better in that area? Because a lot of Gator Nation, and I think a lot of analysts out there as well outside of Florida, really do like the talent. It's just, can Billy Napier break through as that game day coach?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it at his prior stop. Maybe it hasn't clicked as much here at Florida, but a lot of that is related to the team he's coaching. So I think that combined with his best roster, I think some of those issues that might be under the microscope might be glossed over a little bit more. If instead of a tight game, if you're up by 10 points, some of those decisions might not matter as much. But yeah, that kind of thing, coaches grow and evolve. So I'm okay with that. I more so look at this personnel, and I really like it. One thing I added to the book here is, everyone has their high school recruiting rankings and their transfer ranks. I've got those in there, but I also added this year the mock NFL draft picks for next year, for 2026. And I know it's early for a mock NFL draft, but still a decent indicator at the pro talent in the room. And Florida checks in top 10 there. They're projected to have 9 draft picks next April. That would be phenomenal. Yeah. I think that, that paints a picture of it's veteran, and you got future pros here all over this roster.
Brett, going to that point, in our next point that we'll go, and you kind of mentioned it, but I want to get your angle, because it is fascinating to me when you look at early season Florida and you mentioned, hey, Florida decided to retain, Florida decided to, go through high school recruiting a bit more instead of relying on the transfer portal. Well, they got some early season back-to-back road games against LSU and Miami, both teams that decided to hit the transfer portal pretty hard this past season. So to me, it is going to be such a polarizing 2 weeks for Florida. First of all, they're two rivals, and you got to go on the road against both of them. But it is also, teams, at least teams for this year, that have taken a different approach to attack how they're going to try and find success this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. LSU just signed the #1 transfer haul in America, and you know how expensive these transfer players are with NIL money. So they are going all in on 2025. They also gave their coordinator, Blake Baker, the biggest contract in coordinator history in college football. It was like $2.2 million or something. So they're really going all in here in Brian Kelly's, his third or fourth season. It's 2025 or bust for them. So pressure's on. In terms of transfers, yeah, I mean, they're rebuilding a lot of that defense. So maybe as a Florida angle, you can take advantage of that. But they do return Garrett Nussmeier, a proven quarterback, a proven Heisman candidate here, along with a great receiving corps. So Florida's secondary is going to be tested right away in that one. With Miami, similar deal. And maybe it stands out more because in the ACC there isn't as much talent. Yeah. But when you look at their roster, it really stands out as the #1 most talented roster in the conference, along with Clemson. Clemson did it the old-fashioned way with high school recruiting and development. Miami's strong in both. I mean, they're top 10 high school recruiting and top 10 transfer. And what you're going to get with Miami, you're going to have a strong offensive line with Mario Cristobal. But their defense got gashed last year, and that's what they're trying to attempt to rebuild and fix this year. New coordinator, new players from the portal, and, of course, the headliner. You can't go without mentioning it. You got Carson Beck coming to Miami, and it's a guy who's been hot and cold over his career. I was actually down there in Tuscaloosa when it was Georgia at Alabama last year, and Carson Beck, you got to see both sides of him. Yeah. First half, he threw 3 picks. The second half, it was like 4 touchdowns, rallied them to a crazy comeback. So I don't know what version we're going to get here at Miami. It's very hot and cold. You get 2023, he was a Heisman, contender. 24 was a bust. So we'll see what we have. But you're right; those are two very variable and young and new teams to catch in September.
Yeah, and like I said, going back to your rankings, that means Florida goes back-to-back weeks playing Brett's #9 team in Miami and #10 team in LSU in back-to-back weeks. So. We know it doesn't get easy.
It doesn't get easy, and then you go after that bye week. You draw Texas, Texas A&M. It's unbelievable what they did to Florida with this schedule. But it rotates every 2 years. So I guess maybe next cycle you'll catch a break if there is such a thing in the SEC. But no, it's a heck of a schedule this year.
Yeah, we'll see. They got to decide on the college football playoff format before the Greg Sankey decides, hey, if we're going 8 games, 9 games, we'll see what it all means when you look at it. So, Brett, and going back to Florida a little bit, and I'm not sure off the top of your head, but if you could compare it to other teams since you've been doing this preseason magazine or even just covering college football in general, but how do late season surges translate to the next season? Can you compare Florida to anybody to recent memory, or is it just something in general that you have a rule about of how much do you weigh the previous season surge? And now for Florida, there's a lot of returning pieces in that surge, so I'm sure there's a lot of connected pieces there. But is there a such thing as momentum for you from one year to the next?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. I do look at that. I look at first half of the season versus second half of the season to see if there were any, mid-season coordinator shifts or personnel changes. Do they go with a quarterback change? What was the plus minus with or without the new guy? I look at all that stuff, and it is definitely a momentum game because, in between the seasons is a key part of it. It's a talent acquisition season. So when they rattled off all those wins in November, got the bowl win over Tulane, you saw that cascade into his best class. Yeah, they finished #8 in the high school ranks in the 2025 recruiting class. So, that all factored into that class, which then rolls into this one. Now you have 5 stars like we talked about. You've got Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown. Who knows what happens if instead of winning those 4 games, if they lose a handful of them and fire the coach, and then you're talking about a whole new system. You're not getting those recruits, I'm sure. So it all does play into it. You want to see momentum. And like I said at the top, I'm a numbers guy too. I look at trends and patterns and, it all kind of rolls into the next year. So it's definitely important the way they closed. the way they were able to retain those 4 linemen, 2 offense, 2 defense. I don't know if that happens without that momentum, you know?
Yeah.
If you guys, Florida finished 4-8, they might have just said, hey, we're out of here. We're going pro. So it all definitely factors in. And, you look for pointers up and down, and there's just a lot pointing up for Florida. I'm not just saying that because I'm on Gators Breakdown, but, numerically and then from watching them play, it's just that the pointers are up for 2025.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, let's look at SEC a little bit. And let's go to the top of the SEC. I want to get, maybe it's a simple answer because of your rankings, but if you had to pick one of Texas, Bama, or Georgia to not live up to expectations, is it as simple as the order you pick, Texas, Bama, Georgia, and it would be Georgia as the team that maybe wouldn't live up to expectations? Or is there a variance with the other teams that you could see, maybe one of them doesn't live up to that expectation?
Yeah, I really feel confident with Texas and Alabama. I think I would pick Georgia for this answer just because for the first time in several years, they looked human last year. And I know it sounds crazy, but they finished number 1 in my formula, my game grader, in 21, in 22, and 23. I know that they didn't win the national title in 23, but still a distant number 1 in my rankings. Last year, they fell all the way to 11th. And that's definitely a change here. You saw them missing tackles a lot more than usual last year. The run push was not there. They weren't able to just overpower teams in the trenches. Lack of playmakers on the outsides. Now, I think with the portal, they did address at least the receiver room. They pumped in some new talent on the defense too. But I think that they're going to stay third. I don't think that they're going to return and defend the SEC title. I think they're going to be third place. And still a question mark. I mean, we're talking about some known factors, but a question mark at quarterback. Gunnar Stockton, he did play a game and a half in the playoff, and granted, they did win. He rallied them to a victory, but that's still a small sample size. So I got to see more of that. Not to say that Arch Manning's sample size was much bigger. I know his was only about 4 games, but I think the surrounding talent around him at Texas is head and shoulders right now above what Georgia has. With Bama, I love what they've done, and this is a second-year bonus. I love talking about that in the book, but a second-year head coach bonus with Kalen DeBoer. He brings in his guy, his longtime right-hand man, and Ryan Grubb. They're going to install that passing scheme that took Washington to the national title. And talking about NFL guys that could have gone pro, similar to what Florida pulled off, Alabama did the same thing with their defense. And only 5 guys were drafted last year. They're all back in Tuscaloosa, projected for 15 draft picks next April. So I think you have a really, really NFL talent team in Alabama. So I'm going to stick with Texas, Bama to play in Atlanta.
All right. And Brett, I know this topic has been discussed a lot this year, and I do agree with it. The gap in college football, we can go to the SEC as well. Is it obvious that it has shrunk? As your number 1 team is Penn State, your number 2 team is Texas this year, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, that's your top 5, Clemson at 6. And in a lot of publications and a lot of websites out there, that seems to be the consensus of your top teams this year. But it really does seem like they are not head and shoulders above the rest of the of the other teams in the conference or in the conferences and in the national race as much as years past. It really does seem like the top has come down a little bit.
Yeah, it's I think more national champion contenders have emerged, and there's a couple reasons. Like I said, I launched in 2012, and if you think back to that time, there was still a conference called the Big East and the Pac-10, and we had the BCS. So, but during that, most of that time was the Saban dynasty. So that locked up one of the 2 or one of the 4 spots at the bracket almost every year. You had that. You had the Dabo Swinney dynasty forming there later in the decade. Ohio State was always a top player. And then Oklahoma had the offense. So that was really just like your 4 default teams every year. You have a lot more variance now, not only because the playoff has expanded, but I think with NIL and transfers, there's been like more of a shuffling of talent. So there's a couple things here. Yeah, I think there's more contenders because the path to a national title is not as strict. So I say this because look at Ohio State last year. They were arguably they were the best team, but they did lose 2 games in the regular season. They lost to an unranked Michigan on the final day. In the prior 130 years of college football, they'd have been thrown out of discussions for a national title. But with this expansion, they're right back there in the bracket, and they had a chance to go do it, and they did it. So I say this all to say, even like a team like Oregon this year, who, they sent 20 starters to the pros or whatever it was, and they're really young. They might go 10-2, but by the time the January rolls around, all these 5-star kids are now 13 starts into their career. They become veteran pretty quick. So now you're looking at who has more 5-star depth. It's not so much about escaping the regular season. It's about who can outlast this long bracket in January. So it's really changed how you look at crowning a title team. So, yeah, I would say that it has definitely widened the scope. You no longer have Saban, and I think Dabo's dynasty has receded a bit. So it's wide open. You could argue 8, 9, 10 teams every year.
Brett, here's something interesting I want to get from you. Is there a team that you like and dislike more than you thought you would after you've compiled all your research and all your previews? Like, what was there a team that, oh, okay, after all the research, I didn't expect this team to kind of be this high or this low?
Yeah, well, one right away with the release of the coaches poll, I saw that Illinois checked in at 12th, and I just don't buy that at all. That's on a different planet from where I see them. Last year,
32nd in your rankings, by the way.
Yeah, right. So
Yep.
12th in the coaches poll, 32nd there on the big board, on the top 40 board. And, look here, I really like what Brett Bielema did last year. A lot of credit there that they grinded out 10 wins. But if you go look back at their schedule and what they did, it was a lot of one-score wins. They beat the nation's worst team, Purdue. It took a 50-49 shootout to pull that one out, and a couple overtime wins. So anyway, when you look at my advanced numbers there, the game grader, my game grader had them like 35th last year, despite a 10-win season. So I use that as a pretty big indicator. And yes, they bring back 20 starters, but I think that same roster kind of peaked last year. I don't see how they could do any better than that, and I think they're going to fall back in the win-loss column. So I'm calling for them to finish 9th in the Big Ten, much less the coaches poll had them 12th nationally. So I just don't buy it there. I mean, I'm also fading a couple other teams. SMU, I'm lower on than most. BYU, after their quarterback and receiver left, I'm selling them pretty hard. But those are teams I'm selling. Teams I'm buying, I guess, with Florida and Oklahoma, just to keep bringing these two teams up, it's undeniable the talent that they have stockpiled. It's just that the schedule gauntlet is certainly there. That's going to be tough to break into, a 10-win season with that schedule. And then lastly, Texas Tech. You got to talk about this team from the Big 12. What they did, if you're not familiar with the Big 12, is they went out and they rallied all their NIL boosters, all that big oil money out in West Texas, and they said, hey, we're going all in for 2025. They signed 12 blue chip transfers. That's more than the entire conference combined out there in the Big 12. So they are just pumping in so much talent they'd never seen before, and they caught my eye. I have them playing for the conference title game in Dallas.
Yeah, and you have them 16th in your rankings, Baylor 17th, Michigan 18th, and Ole Miss 19, Auburn at 20. Tennessee 21, Utah 22, Indiana 23rd, TCU 24th, and Kansas State 25th.
A lot of SEC.
A lot of SEC teams. One that caught me by surprise a little bit, Brett, and this is going to get some in Gator Nation to notice as well. Florida State at 29 after the 2-win season last year. For Mike Norvell. What about their, I guess, what you see for some kind of good bounce back for the Noles this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, it all starts back at that 2023 season. They were really strong. They went undefeated, and then they got snubbed, and probably the worst playoff snub that we've ever seen. And I think that, it's hard to really estimate it, but I think that lingered into 2024 a lot. You saw their players mentioning it at media days throughout the spring ball. I mean, it was just lingering there. It was probably a locker room discussion the whole way. And then when they opened up and lost 2 games, it's like all their goals were out the window. So, I mean, there's no more talk of ACC, no more playoff. This is no excuse. They played terrible football, but I wonder how much of that lingered and they kind of checked out and lost the locker room. You see this time to time. So I think that talent-wise, they were better than 2 wins. I mean, look at all the 4 stars and 5 stars there. Now, with that said, here's what I like about them this year. You can even throw that season out, but I like what they did at coordinator. They brought in Gus Malzahn. He actually demoted himself from head coach of UCF to just do X's and O's again. And he's been great as an offensive play caller everywhere he's been. So I think he boosts the offense. Tony White, their defensive coordinator, he's been successful at Syracuse and Nebraska with a bunch of 2 stars and walk-ons. So I like that hire. And then I like their round in the transfer portal this time around. It's like they went back to the proven production model instead of the high ceiling potential model. I think that they missed a lot in 24. I think they hit more here this year. We'll see. But these are guys that have Power 4 starting experience, some Power 4 all-conference players even. So I like the upgrades they made in coaching and in the portal. I'm not calling for any playoff or any kind of ACC contention, but I think in this ACC, when you look at it, there are not many good teams over there. So they could finish 4th or 5th over there, and I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, Brett, last thing right here I want to ask you about in all your years doing this, and I know you and I, we're on Bill King's show every week up there in Nashville, so you get to talk national college football with Bill King every week, and you've covered the sport for quite a while now. How would you determine a national champion? What playoff format would work best in your opinion? I prefer a small or no playoff. That's just me. We're way past that now. There's no going back. What kind of playoff format do you think would be best for college football?
Well, that's great to hear, Dave. I mean, I thought we were a dying breed. We're an endangered species nowadays.
Okay.
I mean, I love the smaller playoff bracket. I really do. In fact, in the magazine, I wasted a page every single year talking about why it should be the 4-team playoff. I was standing by that for so long. My critique of it was maybe the committee, because it's a closed door meeting. They change their criteria all the time. So my thing was this: I would have loved to stay at 4. But then maybe put in some kind of BCS formula type thing, or some kind of objective measure, whether it be the automatic win of your conference or some kind of objective formula, maybe a mix of the two. I don't know. But, if you could change how you pick the 4 teams, I think 4 was the correct number. And I think looking back, a lot of fans misplaced their anger on the committee. I think they blamed the number 4. I think it was really the committee that they had problems with. So I don't know. I love a small bracket because I love those fall Saturdays. I want the stakes on the line in November. It's funny. I saw Drinkowitz, the Missouri coach. He was saying how he wants a 30-team bracket and that he wants to determine it on the field. Like that was some big claim. I was thinking in my head, yeah, that's called November. That's when it's determined on the field. It's you gotta go the distance in the regular season to earn championship access. So I'm like you. I want the smaller bracket. Now I'm not naive. I know that's never going back. I know. It's all for TV money, and the more playoff that they can get, the more they generate. So, but ideally, without any TV money in the way, I'd go back in time to 4. Heck, go all the way back to bowls and polls. You know what I'm saying? Go back to the pre-BCS if we have to, just to get back to some of that tradition that we loved growing up.
For sure. I'm here. Right there with you. Brett, one more thing I want to shout out here, because I'm going to put when I put your magazine up, everybody sees the little mini helmets there that you have to represent your rankings. And if they've seen my Gators Breakdown set, they can see right behind me, I got all the Florida mini helmets right there. And Brett's the one behind those guys. So Brett, also throw that out there too for the work you do with the mini helmets.
Thanks so much. I mean, it's you were one of my first orders way back in the day. I think it was like 2020. So really appreciate that back then, and you spurred a little bit of a business for me. So that's awesome. And what they are, they're those little 2-inch helmets that I used to buy in conference sets, and they stopped making them. So I started customizing them. So you can get your high school, you can get the Florida throwback set, which Dave has, all the Florida styles since the 1960s. You can get an SEC set and get it updated with Texas and Oklahoma. Go for the whole Power 4, the whole FBS, the whole FCS. I've got it all. So, just message me on Twitter at Pick6Previews, or email me, Brett at pick6previews.com. If neither of those work, just get in touch with Dave. He'll relay the message over to me. But
for sure,
would love to show you pictures and customize whatever you'd like. But thanks for shouting out the helmets.
Yeah. Always good stuff. Brett, man, hey, I can't thank you enough for right here letting us go through your 2025 college football preview. Let everybody know one more time where they can find the magazine and, just some of the highlights that they can find in the magazine. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, hey, love catching up. Good luck Gators this fall. And maybe I got to get down to Gainesville for a game, make my debut down there. But pick6previews.com for the magazine, Pick6 Previews on Twitter. And we have the hard copy edition shipping out. We have digital options. We have the in-season Pick 6 Plus if you want to get all this information updated every week, along with the against the spread trends and situational splits and all that. All the information you'd want for the season is available there. Pick6previews.com.
Brad, I'm a big fan of the game grader formula, so that's I like that.
Thank
so
you.
That'd be something I think with the plus side of it, getting that updated throughout the season. That'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, you know what? Because once the season starts, I find it's like drinking from a fire hose. You got 60 games kicking off, and then it's like 3 days later, you got 60 more. So I always have like 30 tabs open on my computer, and it's crashing. So I wanted to put something together where you can log in and just see every team right there, one screen, all the relevant information and data. Look at Florida's opponent right next to it, head to head. Where are the stat advantages, all that stuff. So yeah, appreciate that. Go check that out. And hey, maybe we'll catch up during the season, see how these predictions are shaking out, and see how Florida's starting out.
Yeah, there we go. We'll plan that for sure. All right, everybody. Brett Ciancia right here. Pick Six Previews. Be sure to get your copy of his magazine out right now. Brett, man, I can't thank you enough for joining on Gators Breakdown.
Well, thanks for having me, and congrats on the growth of Gators Breakdown, and good luck with 2025.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brett. All right, everybody. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you on the next episode of Gators Breakdown.